After finally getting that reward from Crime Stoppers, $20,000 check for finding stacks of cash and checks in the wall at a local megachurch there.
Every great mystery begins with two completely different versions of the truth. In one version, Joel Osteen is America's most beloved pastor, leading millions with messages of hope while his family quietly serves alongside him. In the other, he's the architect of a religious empire built on wealth, celebrity, and promises that critics say should never have been made. So, what is the actual truth? Rumors are that Joel Osteen's daughter has broken her silence on what really happened behind closed doors. Today, we'll unveil everything. The pastor who built an empire, or a brand. Joel Osteen has been called many things over the past 2 decades. To millions of devoted followers, he is America's most encouraging pastor, a man whose sermons about hope, purpose, and possibility have helped people through grief, addiction, illness, and financial hardship. But to his critics, he represents something entirely different: the polished face of the prosperity gospel, a movement they believe has blurred the line between faith and fortune. But you see, this story began long before Joel stepped behind a pulpit. His father, John Osteen, founded Lakewood Church in Houston, Texas, in the late 1950s, growing it from a small congregation into one of the city's most influential churches. When John died unexpectedly from a heart attack in January of 1999, many assumed someone with decades of preaching experience would take over. Instead, the responsibility fell to Joel, who had spent years working behind the scenes producing the church's television broadcasts. Remarkably, he had preached only a handful of sermons before inheriting the ministry. To some, it seemed an unlikely choice. To others, it marked the beginning of a new era. Joel Osteen's leadership transformed Lakewood into America's largest megachurch, drawing about 45,000 weekly attendees. The church relocated to Houston's renovated Compaq Center, while his television ministry reached millions worldwide. His best-selling books, including Your Best Life Now, further expanded his uplifting message beyond the church. Few religious leaders have built a media presence on that scale. Yet the very success that inspired supporters also fueled suspicion. Unlike many evangelical pastors, Joel rarely emphasizes hell, judgment, or divine punishment in his sermons. Instead, he speaks about personal growth, positive thinking, and God's desire to bless his followers. Admirers describe the message as hopeful and accessible. Critics, including respected theologians, argue that it minimizes core biblical teachings about repentance, sacrifice, and suffering. Some former believers have gone further. They have accused prosperity theology of extorting vulnerable people by equating financial success with spiritual favor. But what does his daughter, Alexandra Osteen, think? Who they are on stage is who they are at home. For someone who grew up inside America's largest megachurch, Alexandra Osteen has remained remarkably difficult to figure out. Unlike many children of famous pastors, she hasn't launched a personal ministry, written a memoir, hosted a podcast exposing her upbringing, or reinvented herself as a social media commentator. Instead, she has quietly built her role within Lakewood Church, serving as a worship leader and member of Lakewood Music, alongside her brother, Jonathan. While her father, Joel Osteen, has spent decades under the national spotlight, Alexandra has largely avoided publicity. But in 2024, speaking with Crosswalk about growing up inside one of the world's most recognizable churches, Alexandra was asked what it was really like behind the scenes. Her answer surprised many people, expecting even the smallest crack in the family's carefully maintained public image. "They've always just been my parents," she said. "I could brag on them for days on end. They're great parents, and who they are on stage is who they are at home." She expanded on that idea by describing how her perspective changed as she grew older. "As I've grown up, I've recognized this is not normal," she explained. "This is the hand of God that's blessed us and given us this ministry, and we have to steward and do the best that we can with it, and always point to Jesus." Alexandra was referring to the extraordinary scale of Lakewood Church and the responsibility that comes with leading a global ministry. But the irony is hard to miss. The Osteen family has long been associated with debates over prosperity theology, where supporters heard gratitude and humility, Critics heard language they believed reflected the same theology they had questioned for years. That divide has followed Joel Osteen throughout his career. While millions appreciate his uplifting message, many theologians argue that his sermons emphasize blessing, success, and positive thinking while devoting comparatively less attention to sin, repentance, suffering, and judgment. Others point to the family's multi-million-dollar home, best-selling books, and immense influence as symbols of a ministry that has become inseparable from financial success. Joel has repeatedly responded that he stopped taking a salary from Lakewood Church years ago and instead earns his personal income primarily through book royalties and related ventures. Those explanations have satisfied some observers, but they've done little to silence his most vocal critics, especially as the controversies kept piling on. The controversies that wouldn't go away. For years, Joel Osteen's critics had argued that his message sounded uplifting when life was going well, but they wondered how it would hold up during a real crisis. That test arrived in late August of 2017, when Hurricane Harvey slammed into southeast Texas. The storm dumped historic amounts of rain on the Houston area, flooding entire neighborhoods and forcing tens of thousands of residents from their homes. As emergency shelters filled to capacity, attention quickly turned to one of the largest buildings in the city, Lakewood Church. The former Compaq Center, with its massive seating capacity and sprawling facilities, seemed like the obvious place to house evacuees. Yet, the church did not open as a public shelter. Social media erupted. Photographs circulated online, appearing to show the church campus dry, while desperate Houstonians searched for refuge. Celebrities, journalists, and ordinary residents questioned why one of America's wealthiest and most influential churches appeared closed during the city's darkest hour. Some critics claimed Joel Osteen prioritized protecting Lakewood Church over helping flood victims. Church leaders responded that flooding, unsafe roads, and water inside parts of the building delayed its use as a shelter. Once conditions improved, Lakewood welcomed evacuees and became a major hub for housing, food, water, and disaster relief supplies. Independent reporting later confirmed that while portions of the property had experienced flooding, the main sanctuary itself was largely unaffected. That did little to settle the debate. Supporters argued the church had been unfairly condemned based on incomplete information and misleading social media posts. Critics responded that the issue was never simply whether floodwater reached the building. It was whether one of America's largest and wealthiest churches should have acted faster and communicated more clearly during one of Houston's darkest moments, just when that story began to fade into history. Another bizarre episode captured headlines around the world. On November 10, 2021, plumber Justin Daly was carrying out routine repairs in one of the church's restrooms when he noticed something unusual. A toilet had been removed, exposing a wall cavity behind it. Curious, he knocked on the wall and heard a hollow sound. When the drywall was opened, bundles of envelopes began spilling out. Inside were stacks of cash and checks that had apparently been sitting there, untouched, for years. Daly later recalled his shock, saying there were hundreds of envelopes and loose cash, and that he immediately notified church staff. Investigators quickly realized the discovery matched a case that had baffled Lakewood Church for years. Back in March of 2014, church employees reported that approximately $600,000 in cash and checks had disappeared from a secure area where weekend donations were counted before being deposited. The theft triggered a lengthy investigation by the Houston Police Department and attracted national attention because of the sheer amount of money involved. Despite interviews, forensic work, and years of investigation, no suspect was ever publicly identified, and no arrests were made. Then, nearly 7 years later, the missing money had seemingly been hiding in the walls of the very building from which it vanished. Even with the remarkable discovery, the mystery refused to end. Police believed the recovered cash and checks were connected to the 2014 theft, but many questions remained unanswered. Who placed the envelopes behind the wall? Was the hiding place chosen in a moment of panic, with the intention of returning later? Or had the money been deliberately concealed where no one would think to look? Perhaps the most puzzling question was how hundreds of envelopes containing cash could remain hidden inside one of America's busiest churches for nearly 7 years without anyone discovering them during renovations, maintenance, or inspections. Naturally, online speculation exploded, with theories ranging from an inside job to elaborate cover-ups involving church leadership. Yet, despite the wave of rumors, investigators never accused Joel Osteen, Alexandra Osteen, or any member of the Osteen family of involvement in the theft or the hidden money. No evidence has ever been made public linking them to the crime. Silence speaks loudly. One of the most unusual aspects of the Osteen story isn't something Alexandra Osteen has said. It's everything she hasn't. In today's media landscape, children of high-profile public figures often carve out identities separate from their parents. Some write best-selling memoirs exposing difficult childhoods. Others publicly reject their family's beliefs, speak out during scandals, or use social media to clarify where they stand. Alexandra has done none of those things. Despite growing up inside one of the most scrutinized ministries in America, she has maintained an almost complete silence on the controversies that have repeatedly surrounded Lakewood Church. That silence has become part of the story itself. Her silence extends into the larger theological debates surrounding her father's ministry. Alexandra's silence extends beyond headline-making events into the much larger debate that has followed her father's ministry for decades. For years, influential Christian leaders such as John Piper, Al Mohler, the late R.C. Sproul, and Hank Hanegraaff have criticized Joel Osteen's theology, arguing that his sermons place overwhelming emphasis on God's blessings, personal success, and positive thinking while devoting comparatively little attention to sin, repentance, judgment, sacrifice, and the cost of following Christ. Some have gone even further. They argue that Osteen's message reflects prosperity theology, a movement that teaches, to varying degrees, that faith, generosity, and obedience can lead to God's material blessings. While Joel has repeatedly denied preaching a simplistic, give money and God will make you rich formula, critics argue that his message often leaves audiences with exactly that impression. Those theological debates inevitably lead to questions about money. Various wealth estimates have placed Joel Osteen's personal net worth anywhere from roughly $50 million to well over $100 million. Public records show that the Osteen family lives in a mansion in Houston, reportedly worth around $10 million, located in the exclusive River Oaks area, complete with multiple bedrooms, expansive grounds, and luxury amenities. To supporters, there is nothing inherently wrong with a best-selling author enjoying the financial rewards of his success. To critics, however, the image of extraordinary wealth sitting alongside sermons about God's blessings creates an uncomfortable contradiction that has become impossible to ignore. Former believers, investigative journalists, and many theologians have raised a broader ethical concern. They argue that prosperity theology can disproportionately affect people facing financial hardship, illness, or personal crisis by encouraging them to believe that generous giving and unwavering faith will unlock God's blessings. Critics contend that vulnerable people may donate money they cannot comfortably afford because they sincerely believe God will reward their sacrifice financially. Some former members of prosperity-focused ministries have described feeling responsible when promised breakthroughs failed to materialize, believing their lack of faith, not the teaching itself, was to blame. Joel Osteen has consistently rejected the accusation that he exploits struggling people, maintaining that his goal is to inspire hope rather than pressure anyone into giving. He has also repeatedly stated that he stopped taking a salary from Lakewood Church many years ago, explaining that his personal income comes primarily from best-selling books, speaking engagements, and related media ventures rather than church donations. Yet, because Lakewood Church, like many churches in the United States, is not required to publicly file the same detailed financial disclosures as many nonprofit organizations, questions about the ministry's finances have never entirely disappeared. That lack of transparency has allowed both defenders and critics to fill in the gaps with their own assumptions. Supporters argue there has never been evidence that Joel Osteen personally misappropriated church funds or committed financial fraud. Critics respond that legal innocence does not automatically resolve ethical concerns surrounding wealth, celebrity, and the commercialization of ministry. Through all of it, Alexandra Osteen has remained almost entirely absent from the debate. She has never publicly defended prosperity theology in detail, responded to criticism of her family's lifestyle, or addressed estimates of her father's wealth. Her interviews consistently return to worship, songwriting, and faith. In one of her few extended public conversations, she described her parents as authentic, insisting who they are on stage is who they are at home. Beyond that, she has offered almost no glimpse into private family life. Is that unwavering loyalty, a deliberate effort to protect her family's privacy, or simply the choice of someone who believes her calling is leading worship rather than answering critics? We don't know, but the evidence does show some seriously disturbing patterns. The family at the center of America's most polarizing church. Since assuming leadership of Lakewood Church after his father Joel Osteen's death in January of 1999, Joel has transformed the ministry into a global organization reaching millions through television, streaming platforms, books, podcasts, and live Night of Hope events. His sermons have been translated into multiple languages and broadcast in more than 100 countries. Thousands of people attend services each week in Houston, while countless others credit his message with helping them overcome addiction, depression, grief, or hopelessness. To these followers, the criticism misses the bigger picture. They see a family using its influence to encourage people around the world, and Alexandra's comments simply confirm what they already believe. Critics, however, see an entirely different narrative. They argue that Lakewood Church has become inseparable from branding, celebrity culture, prosperity theology, and endless controversies. One of the most uncomfortable episodes unfolded during a now-famous interview with CNN's Larry King. Asked a straightforward theological question, whether non-Christians go to heaven, Joel repeatedly hesitated. "I don't know," he answered more than once, adding, "I'm not God." The exchange immediately reverberated throughout the evangelical world. Many pastors accused him of refusing to affirm one of Christianity's most fundamental doctrines, while others defended him for showing humility instead of pretending to know God's final judgment. Joel later clarified his beliefs, but the damage, or depending on your perspective, the benefit, had already been done. That wasn't an isolated incident. During a later Fox News interview, Joel was asked whether members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints were Christians. Once again, he declined to give a definitive answer, responding, "I don't know enough about it." The backlash was immediate. Critics argued that one of the world's best-known pastors should be capable of answering basic theological questions without hesitation. Supporters saw something entirely different. A pastor refusing to speak with certainty about issues he believed required greater understanding. Those interviews established a pattern that would follow Joel for years. Whether discussing salvation, doctrine, or politics, he consistently chose caution over confrontation, earning criticism from people on every side of the debate. Perhaps the deepest divide centered on Joel's approach to Christianity itself. He has openly acknowledged that he avoids preaching about sin and judgment in the way many traditional pastors do, explaining, "I don't focus on the negative. I choose to focus on God's goodness." He has often said that people already know what they're doing wrong, and that his responsibility is to leave them encouraged rather than condemned. To millions of listeners, that's precisely why they tune in every week. But to critics, it represents a dangerous shift away from historic Christian teaching. During a memorable 60 Minutes interview, theologian Michael Horton dismissed Osteen's message as a cotton candy gospel, and even described it as heresy. Joel's response was simple: I don't know what can be so dangerous about giving people hope. The controversies didn't stop there. In 2020, government records revealed that Lakewood Church had received approximately $4.4 million through the federal Paycheck Protection Program, despite its reputation as one of America's wealthiest megachurches. Critics questioned why such a financially successful ministry needed taxpayer assistance at all. Lakewood explained that the funds were used to retain approximately 368 employees during the pandemic. But following the public backlash, Osteen later repaid the loan in full. Years earlier, Joel's wife, Victoria Osteen, had also made national headlines after being accused by a Continental Airlines flight attendant of assault during a dispute over a stained armrest. Victoria denied the allegations. A jury ultimately ruled in her favor, and no damages were awarded. But the lawsuit challenged the carefully polished image surrounding the Osteen family. Even events that weren't scandals in the legal sense, such as Kanye West bringing his Sunday service to Lakewood Church in 2019, reignited criticism that the ministry had become too closely intertwined with celebrity culture and entertainment. Yet for all the headlines, Joel Osteen has never been convicted of financial crimes. That distinction matters because separating documented controversy from internet mythology may be the most important and most difficult part of understanding the Osteen story. Well, that's it for now. Thanks for watching. Did you like this video? If you did, please consider liking, dropping a comment, and hitting the subscribe button so that you don't miss out on our new uploads. Also, don't miss this video you see on your screen right now. It's truly unbelievable.